action. Today I'm coming to you all with my top 10 movies of the year, and just a forewarning before we get into this, these are my own personal opinions, and I definitely would love to hear your top 10 down below in the comment section. But also just another forewarning, this is maybe going to be a controversial list to a lot of people, because there's some titles in here you may have never even heard of, and maybe you might think, wow, these in your top 10? So without further ado, let's get into it. Hello everyone, what's going on? Welcome to the channel, and thank you so much for taking your own time out to check out this top 10 movies list. So yeah, it's coming to that time again where we've had basically every movie that's going to be released in 2023 already have, and we have come down to where I've been thinking, okay, well, what makes my top 10 of the year? So just before we go into the list, I've got a couple of honourable mentions, which again, kind of the controversy starts straight away. In the top 10 kind of honourable mentions before the top 10 list, is Barbie. Really enjoyed this movie and just took it for what it was, and it was just a fun time and a great cinema experience. Oppenheimer, which is a good movie by Christopher Nolan. Not my favourite of his works, one that I personally wouldn't rewatch time and time again. I have no kind of real desire to. Also, we've got Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, a great action movie from Tom Cruise and another solid installment in the Mission Impossible franchise. And finally, the last honourable mention is Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, which was a really pleasant and really cool surprise, and a one that I did not expect to kind of really enjoy, but I really found myself really kind of motivated and really loved this kind of underdog really story. So yeah, those are my honourable mentions, and without further ado, let's get into the top 10. Do you want access to early videos you won't ever see here onto the channel? Well, click the link down below in the description box today and join my Patreon with memberships only starting from £1 per month. You get so much extra stuff, and it costs less than one coffee per day. And I'd also like to give a quick thank you to all my awesome patrons who help to really support the channel and who are also reaping all these benefits, so join them today. Coming in at number 10 is a movie directed by Ben Affleck, and this was awesome because I got to see this movie with my friend Ryan Swales at Newcastle Cinema, and that is a movie called Air, which of course has like Ben Affleck, Matt Damon, Viola Davis, and many more, and essentially tells the story of Nike and how they came with like the Air Jordan shoe. I found this just to be a really interesting movie. I had some great humor here. The story was just like a nice story to it overall. There was definitely some stuff about Nike I personally didn't know, and I found that to be really fascinating. Overall, just a good time. A movie that I just really enjoyed, walked out the cinema with a smile on my face, and definitely one I want to revisit. Coming in at number 9, thanks to the For Love of Horror kind of Comic Con, I got an early screener with this with my partner Emma in Manchester, and it's Eli Roth's Thanksgiving. So this one was just a bloody fun good time is the best way I can explain it. Just the practical effects were great. The story was a simple one, but overall, even if you don't really care about the characters, the John Carver killer was kind of menacing in terms of just the deaths were just brutal. As soon as he basically got a hold of you, you didn't have much chance to survive. Just a really fun horror, one that I really enjoyed, and the whole cinema had like a great reaction and another great cinema experience. So Thanksgiving earned its way at number 9. Number 8 is probably a one that's going to again cause a bit of controversy, because I know a lot of people absolutely love this movie, and I like this movie, but I don't think for me it's higher than these other ones, and that is Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Now, don't get me wrong, Into the Spider-Verse, I really like that movie. I like both movies, don't get me wrong, they're both great in their own respective, each and individual ways. But there was just something about this one. I walked out the cinema remembering thinking, wow, I had a really good time. But there's something about it I've thought about since watching that movie, and ever since I've just thought, I kind of have no real desire to kind of rewatch this one again, until maybe a part 2 comes out and of course completes the story. But there was just something about it where I felt like maybe it was a little bit too long, or maybe a couple of things could have been cut out. I'm not really too sure on the exact thing and pinpoint that exactly, but I still had a great time with it. Great animation, great story as well, and definitely more character development for Miles, which is such a likable character. So Spider-Man earns number 8. Number 7 is a movie that I don't think a lot of people have seen, and I went into the cinema, saw the movie. I didn't really see a trailer really much beforehand, so this was kind of like a pleasant surprise, because after I walked out I was like, wow, I actually really enjoyed this movie. And it's called The Royal Hotel, and it's got 2 solid female performances right in our leads, and basically it's about these 2 girls who go to like the Australian outback because they're traveling in Australia. Basically, once they get to like this kind of place called the Royal Hotel, they soon learn that like all the kind of like locals are weird, and they kind of like, it kind of just escalates like from getting this job for these girls who are just backpacking and they want to earn a bit of money before they go to the next place, till eventually we get to the end of the movie. This is a one where like not a lot happens, but situational rise and like the realisms of life, it slowly starts to creep in as the movie progresses. And this I just found to be a really entertaining movie, and this is a one where I love the performances. The story was so simple, but I also really liked the story as well. The only kind of like nitpick I had was kind of a little bit with the ending, but besides that, I think this is a movie that has definitely been slept on this year. Coming in at number 6 was actually a recommendation from my brother Anthony A. Perez, so shout out to Perez if you're watching. And this is a one he actually covered as an early screener from Netflix called Fair Play, and Phoebe Denver and Alden Ehrenreich, if I've got those right. And I'll be honest, I knew nothing about it, didn't see a single trailer. He left a review and he's like, wow, he really enjoyed it. So I thought, I was kind of like cooking dinner or something like that, and I thought, let's put on a movie. And oh boy, I was gripped to the screen watching Fair Play. I really, really enjoyed this movie. It's such a simple story about this couple who recently get engaged. They work at the same place, but when the Phoebe Denver gets promoted instead of Alden Ehrenreich, which he believes he deserves over her, things get kind of nasty and toxic in the relationship and kind of escalate from there. Again, kind of like a simple premise, but it's done effectively. The tension is built really well. I believe these two as a couple, and just solid, really great performances. And again, I think this is also another sleeper hit that has been slept on this year. So definitely Fair Play, I would recommend, and I believe it's currently on Netflix. Coming in at number 5 is a one that I was looking forward to, but I was also kind of worried what they were going to do with the story due to some kind of previous installments that we've had in this kind of franchise, so to say. But it is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. Now this was kind of just feels like a kind of like a refresh, breath of fresh air, something a tad little bit different, but also something that we're kind of familiar with, but done in a different sort of style. Mutant Mayhem was a blast. Absolutely preferred it over Spider-Man, which again is probably a hot take for a lot of people, but I just had a great time with this. I've always loved the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and I've always loved Spider-Man, but this was just a great time. I remember walking out the cinema and thinking, wow, that was awesome. I really, really can't wait to see more from this universe. And of course, they tease that in the kind of post-credit scene, which I've heard that they've maybe announced a sequel, and I can't wait. So Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem earns the spot at number 5. Coming in at number 4 is a movie that had a lot of hype, and one that I thought, is it really going to live up to the hype? And oh boy, it certainly did live up to the hype, and that is Godzilla -1. So going into this one, as I mentioned, I was a bit reluctant. I just kind of held the expectations though, and just held back and thought, look, let's just see how this actually goes. It's either going to go really good or it's going to be an absolute flop. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I was sat there when the movie ended, just like listening to the music on the credits. I just sat there with like goosebumps. I was shaking with like emotion, and just kind of overwhelmed with emotion was probably the better word or phrase that I could have used. And the Godzilla action is absolutely phenomenal. It looks so realistic. It is fantastic. The human characters, finally they created a Godzilla movie in recent times where you care about the human characters, and that alone I absolutely loved. That they actually made that, audiences care for the people who's actually on the screen, rather than Godzilla going around and trying to fill in runtime. Godzilla -1 was an absolute treat at the cinema. and a one I can't wait to own on physical media. Coming into my top 3, and you might be thinking, Mike, what is going to make your top 3? Well, these are probably going to be 3 choices that may not be on many people's lists, I'll be quite frank with you. And coming in at number 3 is one of the first movies I saw in 2023 in the cinema. I believe in America it may have got like a late release in 2022, and that is A Man Called Otto. Now this stars Tom Hanks, and I believe it is kind of like an American remake of A Man Called Ovo. I might be wrong, or Over, I can't quite remember, but I just remember going into the cinema of this again, seeing a trailer, but didn't really think much of it, or tried to avoid the trailer, and after it ended I just remember being in tears. This was a beautiful, really powerful performance. Tom Hanks, I know he's had a couple of misses in the last couple of years, but this one I felt like was a bit of a home run for him, and I think that he played Otto really, really well. It's just again a beautiful, simple story, but of course a one that is all centered around grief, and I think it's handled so well. I was invested in all the characters that was on screen. I was invested in the story from beginning all the way up until the end, and I just absolutely love this movie. Coming in at number 2 is a one where, when I first watched this movie, and I've only seen this movie once, I really enjoyed it. I was kind of overcame with emotion towards the end of it, and like kind of like as the movie finished, and I thought, wow, like what a really cool, great movie that I don't think a lot of people would have seen. And I still think to this day maybe many people haven't seen this movie. But the more I've thought about this after it's ended, and even until, and like right now I'm recording this video, I just think, wow, I actually really appreciate this movie, and I think it's great, and I can't wait to watch it again. But it's not got a physical media release as I'm recording this video, and that is called The Tunnel of Summer, The Exit of Goodbyes. Now this is a simple animation kind of style movie from Japan, and the story basically centers on 2 characters, and they find this kind of magical tunnel, right? And if you go into this tunnel, the further you go in, by the time you come out, time has leapt forward, and both of them kind of test, you know, like how far you go in, like how far it's gone. So it could be like a day, it could be 3 days, it could be 7 days, it could be a month, it could be like a year, 7 years. It of course, it's all different kind of like time relevancy, and if you like that kind of thing in a movie or an animation, then I think that you'll really, really enjoy this one. Again, it's a simple story. The only kind of qualm I had in general about it was I wish this movie was like 10-15 minutes longer even, to give us a bit more character development with our characters and give us more of this world. But for what we're given, again, it was just nice to see a refreshing, simple animation story which explained itself. It didn't have, you know, crazy lore behind it or anything, and I think it is really a hidden gem. So Mike, what is your number 1? After all this list, what are you going to think is your number 1 for the year? And again, and maybe another controversial opinion here, and again, and one that I don't think a lot of people have probably seen. It is another animation movie, and it's from my favourite director, Makoto Shinkai. But the reason it's my favourite movie is because I've seen this movie 3 times this year, and every time I've seen it, I've had a different experience watching it. But I just appreciate this movie more and more every single time I've seen it. I've also got on pre-order for physical media, so I cannot wait. And that movie is Suzume, and I loved it. Right now, if you know me and you know the channel, I love, you know, like Weathering with You and Your Name. You can see the collector's editions back there. And going into Suzume, I was really, really excited. Now, do I think it's better than those 2 titles I just mentioned? No, not for me personally. But again, after watching each viewing of this, I enjoy it more and more. I love this movie. I think it is so well done. It's got a lot of really, really nice messages, and it's also a beautifully striking animation picture that I just enjoy endlessly every single time that I've watched it. So Suzume is my number 1. Thank you all for listening to my list. Again, maybe different to a lot of people, so I'd love to know your thoughts on my list down below in the comment section. If you agree with any of them, you disagree, if you haven't seen any of them, let me know as well. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Give it a thumbs up. Certainly subscribe to the channel by clicking the red button down below. Until next time, I'll see you guys. I'll be seeing you later.